the first thing that I did with photography that really got me excited about it was I was a kid and I used to build these little World War II models of little, 1/35th scale figures and vehicles and all this sort of thing. And I would set them up into these sort of visual sort of narratives and dioramas. And then I borrowed my uncle's Polaroid camera and I took a picture of it, of my setup. And I saw that picture and I was fascinated with sort of the idea of the sort of diorama becoming something else. And once I did that, everything changed for me visually. And I was really sort of motivated by that. I think I like the idea of how photography deals with memory. That's a subject that I've always sort of worked with, even in college. In my thesis was the idea of recording something and documenting something. And then when I did my own work, I was really focused on making something up that was based on a memory, and the new thing that I made up it replaces the memory. So I'm sort of fascinated with that. Yeah, my wife is also a fine artist, and we've always sort of been fascinated, not only I've been fascinated by the idea of memory and sort of documentary photography, but she's obsessed with the idea of the absurdity of photography, especially when it comes to what we would call more sort of personal, family type work. And we've always been very sort of entertained with sort of creating these sort of characters. Her work dealt with a lot of self-portraiture and costuming, and I dealt with a lot of sort of straight photography. So when we sort of came together on this idea, we came up with this sort of idea of the absurd photography that looks almost real, but not quite. So it was more of a sort of an exercise in entertaining ourselves with these hilarious things. And of course, we grew up in the 80s. So a lot of the 80s portrait photography was just bizarre.
Bad. Yeah.
And we love it. Especially the key element in our work when we do that is something we call the 10-yard stare. And that's where you're not looking into the camera, where you're sort of looking off at some wonderment that's not happening. We absolutely adore that. It's just absurd to me. I don't know. There's an absurdity to it. When I see pictures like that, I'm wondering, what is that person looking at? Like, what was the motivation? And then I start thinking about what the photographer told the subject to think about or look at, and I just there's a million stories. So I guess it's just a sort of absurd story, the absurd narrative that I want when I do the humorous work. When I do my serious fine art work, again, I'm attacking or really sort of delving into the idea of memory. So I guess even the absurd work deals with sort of memory too, by creating some sort of fake memory. This sort of fake. I'm always. My wife and I are both really interested in Americana and American themes, as they sort of depict a false notion. It just seems like it's good for the soul. It's healthy to sort of make fun out of something. It takes the stress away, especially now.
Yes.
In our current situation politically, which I'm about to make the first work. I haven't made work in years. I'm about to sort of dive into it. But again, dealing with humor, with a little seriousness. But I think it relieves stress. I mean, that's the simplest thing I could really say.
Mm-hmm.
But I think photography itself is sort of funny at times, and there's always been humor, even from the early days of photography. There's always this narrative and this humor that comes into play, and I sort of taking that to the modern realm. The first time I met him, he was just leaving he was in the same school system as my son, and his sister he himself, they went to the same school my son went to. As my son was sort of coming into elementary school, he was graduating and moving on. And I always thought he was a very unique person. We always saw him from afar. We sort of saw the family, and they were very interesting. And my first real experience meeting him was at a Halloween party at an elementary school. And he would come dressed as characters that a normal kid his age would have any knowledge of. And the one that stands out the most for me was he came dressed as Alex from A Clockwork Orange. I mean, in full, authentic regalia, like from head to toe, and I was sort of shocked that a young kid would even know who that was. And you probably know Malcolm McDowell's character from A Clockwork Orange. And so I struck up a conversation with him, and then we came to find that they lived on the same street we lived on, maybe 6 houses away. And we would have conversations every now and again at the school events, and then we photographed his family for their holiday cards. Again, doing sort of humorous. They have the same sense of humor we did, so we would take them and do some Photoshoppery and put them into funny situations. And then he had to do a senior photo one year, and he contacted us and asked us if we would do it. And we went over to his house, and first we did a traditional sort of, chest up portrait. And he said, I have an idea. I want to do something a little bit different. And at first he just wanted to pose with his cat. And then we sort of talked about 1980s sort of funny portraiture and this idea of this sort of person or something sort of floating in the background. And he really liked that idea, and then sort of snowballed from there. And we came up with this sort of funny idea of this image that he used. He wanted to use for his yearbook, and he got a lot of attention because of it. The funny thing is, we shot it on a Sunday, when everyone was home, typical suburban situation. We went and photographed it. I went home. I was very, very excited about the idea because I loved doing this sort of work. So I immediately went home, and I made the initial image probably within an hour. I put it together, and I sent it to him, and he was just flipping out. He loved it so much. And I did not realize he already had this petition online, and he threw it up there. And that went up Sunday night. He put it up because I sent him a proof. He put the proof online, and then I believe it was Monday. I was with my son. It was his birthday, or a day before his birthday. We were shopping in the mall or a bookstore, and I started getting emails, and the emails were from Huffington Post and from CNN, and I was like, that's not real. And I was I didn't believe it. And then when I got home, they just kept coming in, and I just kept getting emails from these sort of internet news agencies, and that's when it was very bizarre to me. When I was at dinner, I think on Tuesday with my son for his birthday, I received a phone call from The Tonight Show, which was sort of shocking to me. And that's when it really became bizarre. Yeah, it has. I can look at it again, but for a while I couldn't look at it. I couldn't disconnect from the outcome of his choice. So now I can look at the image again. There were other images in that series that weren't sort of funny that I took that I really like, but I find very distressing to me. I find them very sad. But now I can look at that image again and find some joy in it. I'm still connected to his family, so I don't know. I think I at this point, this far out, I could find a little more enjoyment in the image again, but not the same. as when we first made it and it first happened.